people from the office. Oh, I'm Juliet and Thompson, and I worked in this office for Charlie Whitaker, and I see all my coworkers here, and I want them to come up here with me. So, and Rachel too, because she was always around. So Desiree, Rachel, Shelley, Roger, anybody else from our office here, can you please come up? I want to see you all together again. Come over here. We were in the Matagalpa office where Donald and Mira and Ben would frequent, and then they would go out, and we'd sit there in the office and go, well, what are we doing? But sometimes we would get out too, and there's Desiree. This is very exciting. This is our old office mates. Except, well, Rachel was always there. She was hanging around a lot, yeah. So, yeah, and Shelley we all worked for Charlie there for... Yeah, and Donald, you were our office mate too from time to time. So, yeah. Yes, exactly. So, it's great to see you all together. My God, there we were. Yeah. So, what? Well, yeah, this is the office, the Matagalpa office crew. Yeah, who were... Yeah, what were you doing there down there, Rachel? Yeah, with Lillian, right?
Of what? Yeah. So they were actually in water, and potable water, all of them. Yeah. And I was at the Ministry of Agriculture, working for the combination of the university and agriculture, working with farmers. So we were in Matagalpa, and that's what brought us together, because we were all doing things.
That made it sound a lot less bureaucratic than it was. It's actually the Ministry of Agrarian,
Ministerio de
Ag and Animal Husbandry,
y Reforma Agraria,
Reform.
Land Reform, yeah.
And then there was the Institute for National Agrarian Reform.
And I was mostly at Terramona, and then I was in Matagalpa.
Presidential delegation for the 6th region.
Well, we were actually working for the Delegación de la Presidencia de la Sexta Región. Yeah.
Like the Office of Budget Management.
And so that, it was
So
just...
we had a cool ID card.
Did we? I don't even remember.
Did you ever get yours?
I probably didn't get
Yeah,
one.
it took forever, didn't it?
And but I'll just say, well, you should probably take a turn, and then we'll just keep going this way. And say, well, Roger was working on water projects there, and we were working in different areas. So you would work in El Croix, and then also with Wewili, right? Wewili and Waslala region. And then I worked in, I ended up working in Bokai and in Rio Blanco zone, in Mulukuku. So half the time I worked with a group that flew the papal flag, and they were completely unarmed. And then the other half of the time I worked in the Kwabokai zone, where everybody was heavily armed. So I'd go back and forth, do 2 weeks with one group and then 2 weeks with another group, and it was very like, okay, now who am I with now? And am I a pacifist or a activist? So, and it was I was there from 87 till 89. Yeah. And then I went back in 1990 with some more equipment and tools and for the water project in Bokai, and got flooded out, so I couldn't leave, and I had to stay for 3 extra days, and we walked out. I remember a guy with a burro, we walked out together, and through all the big washouts that had been created in the road, and I guess I got back to the States eventually. So, and I think we'll just have more time to talk about what we've done since, but I want to just hear about more about our time together.
So I'm Shelley Sherman. My time in the 6th region was which is Matagalpa, so this is all up north, was after Ben was killed. I had been working prior to that in Managua, heading up the Technica office with Mirna and other people in this room. And I had left, and the last time I saw Ben, I believe, was at either my going away party or Don's going away party, because we left a month before he was killed. And we talked about when I would come back and visit him after the war was over. Because it was too dangerous, because all of these places that Julieta just said were really terrible war zones, and I wasn't brave enough. I wasn't working in the war zone. But after Ben was killed, Don and Mira called me and asked me to come down and to work with the family, the Linder family, to help coordinate the aid that was coming down, to make sure that Ben's work continued on the Pueblo Kai project. So I went down and joined the crew in the 6th region and was in the office. And my first, so I started just trying to get supplies down from the States and from Panama to get tools and equipment and a big truck to go up to Pueblo Kai to continue working. And lived with Desiree and Tom and struggled with our getting enough water, putting our buckets out to get water during the couple of hours a day that there was going to be water coming into the city. And the beast, oh my God, I was trying to forget the beast. So I had a terrible, the beast. So I had a car that overheated constantly. I had to park it, on a hill and try to get it going. And it was the Jeep that was supposed to be taking me around. It was just really bad. Yeah. So I went up to, my first trip up to Pueblo Kai was then during a ceasefire that happened a couple of months after I got there. And went in a big, pickup truck with Rebecca Leaf and a bunch of other people, and hoped we weren't going to hit a mine. And I don't know how these people worked up there all the time. It was terrifying. But I did get there to Pueblo Kai and got to meet Hilda and everybody else that had been working on the project, and to see the conditions under which people were there. And it was incredible. I'll never forget it. Mark is reminding me that I should say a word about Paul Baserman, who many of you may know. And that's true, because Paul Baserman was with Technica, and when Technica quit, was not able, stopped working in Nicaragua and after the presidential elections in 1990. Paul Baserman took over the skill trade, who had been involved with the Skill Trades Task Force, kept working to make sure that equipment was going to the Pueblo Kai project. He was based in Brooklyn. He was, just a full heart of gold, a hardest worker. If Paul said he was going to do something, Paul did it. And it was through Paul that the Linders would get supplies, get materials, and make sure that they got down there. Paul recently passed away last December. He had been ill for a while. He had a heart attack. He was in the hospital, and he just didn't have the strength to recover. So, Paul Baserman, presente.
My name is Desiree, and my first encounter with Ben was before I even went down to Nicaragua. I went down to visit Nicaragua, and then came back up and decided I wanted to work there. And I was going down with a group called UPSNICA, Architects and Planners for Nicaragua, and I didn't know where I wanted to work. And I thought I wanted to work up in the north, but I wasn't sure. I thought it would be too dangerous, and I didn't know what the conditions were. So I ended up calling the office of the president and spoke with Ben. He was the first person I spoke to about it. And I asked him how dangerous it was, and he goes, dangerous? And he starts laughing. He goes, Matagalpa's a breeze, you know, it's the north you've got to worry about. And how true that was. And so he reassured me that coming up and working there was going to be a great experience, and that he'd say hello and be there when I arrived. And when I did arrive, he happened to be in the office again. There he was with that big suitcase, briefcase thing of his, you know, that was almost bigger than he was. And it was really great to have a face to put to the voice. And I didn't see Ben that much after that, but every time I did, I felt very close, and he was such a personable and open person. You know, you just could talk to him so easily, and you always felt like he gave you his full attention, and I always appreciated that, and appreciated all the work he did and the dedication and sacrifice.
My background on this was a little different. By the time these guys arrived, I was kind of off the res. I had gone to Nicaragua, not as a solidarity member or anything like that, but as an unemployed machinist. And Nicaragua was just full of broken machines. So I worked on the Nicaraguan economy, and I was an employee of the Nicaraguan government for one thing or another. And I first met Ben because he needed a part made for somewhere, right? And that was not an unusual day. And he saw that I had some Dubé juggling clubs. So basically we were more interested in the juggling than the parts. And then, probably to Shelley and Mirna's continued annoyance, Ben and I tended to meet over at Las Cabañas, where the Technica folks would stay. And, you know, we talked to them, and they'd say, oh, what do you do? He says, oh, I'm a systems analyst. I'm working on a database. We go on. It says, and when I was young, I used to repair relay switches for the electric company. It's like, would you like to get in the Jeep? We were on raiding parties, and we raided for talent, right? Anybody who knew how to weld, knew how to farm, had any of those kind of agro experiences, we were taking off with them. And that's where I started to meet this folk. And I'd like to say that we put in a lot of hard work. There's a lot of good people. The background of this, though, it really was terror. It was terror to live in the North. And Julieta and I are friends, but I think our last day at work together was pretty rough. Where, I don't know if you remember this, in Bokai, you were walking around with a yellow and black t-shirt standing next to other people, and since I didn't want to be shot, I didn't want to stand next to you. And we'd had 4 people assassinated at this spot already. And I was very hard. I was hard on a lot of people. I wanted people to stand 20 meters apart and to move very carefully from place to place. And no, you did not get to ride in the vehicle with your friend to talk about the job, because if that vehicle was destroyed, I didn't want to lose both of my civil engineers. That's the kind of life we had. I personally carried a hand grenade in order not to be taken alive. And if you had seen the bodies of people who had been taken by the Contras, you would know why that was. And, you know, yeah, it was frightening. There was no honor in going there. And when that ceasefire took place, and we went up there together, and I was just amazed. The war was over, my God. I was like, I wasn't even thinking I was going to live through it. And there it was over. We were walking around Bakai. There was Contras standing around with us. It was like, what, show's over? I was happy. I mean, I took my rifle and handed it to, what was that guy's name? He ran the shop. I gave the rifle away, and I actually left town without any weapons on me. And that was the first time in about 3 years that I dared to do a thing like that. And we were dealing with a situation where not only did we have that on the one side, we had people like Urman, who we should also remember today. Mr. Urman, Michael Urman, who is quite ill. and Paul Bazerman, Jamie Lewatton,